the unexpected injury Ethan had been working on the ship for hours. The bright blue sky above him offered little relief from the heat. His hands were stained with grease, his muscles aching from the hard labor. The ship had been damaged during their last trip, and Ethan had volunteered to repair it alone. There was something about being alone that calmed his mind. The world was quiet, the only sounds the hum of the ship's engine and the distant calls of birds. He carefully moved across the deck, adjusting a large panel. He was focused, almost lost in the rhythm of the task. His wrench clicked as it turned, the sound sharp in the otherwise silent air. But then, as he twisted to reach a more difficult spot, his foot slipped on a small patch of oil. His body jerked forward, and in that split second, he tried to catch himself. He didn't succeed. Ethan's right arm slammed into the sharp edge of the steel panel, and he heard a sickening crack. Pain shot through his body like a lightning bolt, and for a moment, everything went black. He gasped for air, his chest tight from the pain. His arm hung at an odd angle, clearly broken. The pain was unbearable, but Ethan remained calm, his mind still sharp despite the agony. He had been through this before, though never quite like this. His first instinct was to call for help, but there was no one nearby. He was completely alone. On this mission, Ethan had always worked alone. It was how he liked it. The quiet, the solitude. It gave him time to think and fix things without anyone interfering. But now, as he lay on the ground with a broken arm, he realized how vulnerable he really was. With his left hand, he gripped his broken arm, biting back the pain. He could feel the bone sticking out in an unnatural angle. It was a bad break, but it wasn't the first time something like this had happened. His body had always healed too quickly sometimes, but never before had he felt the sharp agony of a break this severe. His body was stronger than most, but this injury was pushing him to his limits. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had been through worse. His body had been upgraded, enhanced with technology that allowed him to heal faster than a normal person, but the pain was still real. He had learned long ago that he could push his body beyond its limits, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. With a focused expression, Ethan carefully placed his hand on the broken bone. He had to reset it quickly before the pain consumed him. He didn't have much time. His mind worked fast, calculating the best way to fix it. He took another deep breath and snapped the bone back into place with a sharp crack. The pain was intense, but it didn't last long. His body went into overdrive, working quickly to heal the injury. The broken bone began to fuse together, the muscles around it tightening as they reconnected. It was a strange feeling, his body repairing itself. It felt almost mechanical, but Ethan had grown used to it over the years. As the pain faded, he sat up and examined his arm. It looked fine now, almost as if nothing had happened. His skin was smooth, the bone no longer broken. But there was something about the experience that left him uneasy. He had fixed himself before, but this time felt different. The pain had been deeper, more intense. Maybe it was just the exhaustion, or maybe something else. But Ethan had learned not to ignore his instincts. It was then that he heard the voice. "You fixed yourself?" A woman's voice asked from behind him. Ethan froze. His heart skipped a beat, and his mind raced. He hadn't seen anyone approach. How long had she been there? He quickly turned, his body stiff from the unexpected encounter. Woman stood at the edge of the ship, watching him with wide eyes. She was tall, with long dark hair tied in a ponytail, wearing a simple jumpsuit. Her expression was a mixture of awe and disbelief. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had been so focused on fixing himself that he hadn't noticed her until now. She had been watching him from a distance, perhaps curious about the noise. But the real question was, how much had she seen? He stood up slowly, instinctively hiding his arm behind his back. It's nothing, Ethan said, his voice steady, though inside his mind was racing. I just ... I fix things, that's all. The woman didn't seem convinced. She took a step closer, her eyes scanning him as though trying to figure out if he was lying. Ethan's heart began to beat faster. He had to be careful. If anyone found out what he could do, everything would change. His secret would be out. She narrowed her eyes. You snapped your bone back into place, she said quietly. How did you do that? No one can heal that fast. Ethan's mind was in overdrive. She didn't seem like a threat, but he couldn't risk revealing his abilities. He had worked hard to keep his secret hidden for so long. But as he looked into her eyes, he realized she wasn't going to let it go. She wasn't going to walk away without answers. I upgrade when I break, Ethan said after a long pause, his voice low but calm. The woman looked at him, her eyes wide. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. The stranger's curiosity, Clara, stood still, her eyes fixed on Ethan. The words he had spoken echoed in her mind. I upgrade when I break. She couldn't understand what he meant, but the idea of someone being able to heal themselves so quickly, to upgrade their body like a machine, it was beyond anything she had ever encountered. She had heard rumors, whispers of people like him, but never had she seen one in person. That Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes avoiding hers. He didn't know whether to run or to stay. There was something about Clara's presence that made him feel uneasy. She wasn't a threat, not exactly, but she seemed to know more than she was letting on. The way she watched him, the way her eyes studied every movement, made him feel exposed. You're not just any mechanic, are you? Clara asked, taking a cautious step forward. Her voice was softer now, almost coaxing. I've heard of people like you, people who can ... heal themselves. It's not just a rumor, is it? Ethan didn't respond right away. His mind was racing, calculating the risks. He had spent years keeping his abilities a secret, but now, in the face of Clara's curiosity, it was becoming harder and harder to maintain that illusion. He had learned to trust few people, and even fewer understood what he could do. But there was something in Clara's eyes, something genuine, that made him pause. Maybe she wasn't a threat after all. I've been enhanced, he said quietly, still watching her carefully. It's not just healing. It's something more. My body upgrades itself when it faces damage. It repairs, strengthens, adapts. I don't have control over it. It just happens. Clara's expression softened slightly, though her curiosity didn't waver. Enhanced, she repeated. You mean like cybernetics? Or is it ... something else? Ethan shook his head. It's not cybernetics. It's single quotes S ... biological. My cells regenerate faster. My muscles grow stronger. Every time I'm injured, I come back stronger. It's like my body knows how to fix itself, how to make itself better. Clara blinked, trying to process this new information. She had heard stories of people being modified, of humans undergoing experiments that altered their biology, but she had never encountered someone like Ethan before. The idea of self-healing, of upgrading with every injury, was almost too much to believe. And yet, as she looked at him, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. She had seen him heal before her very eyes. Why are you telling me this? Clara asked, her voice low, still trying to gauge his intentions. You know what people will do if they find out about you, right? They'll try to use you, control you. Ethan's expression darkened. He didn't need to be reminded of the dangers, of his abilities. He had lived with that fear for years, always hiding, always running, always working alone. It was the only way to stay safe. I know, he replied, his voice tight. But it's not like I can stop it. I can't undo what's been done to me. I can't turn it off. It's just part of me now. Clara took another step closer, her face softening with sympathy. I wasn't trying to threaten you. I'm not here to hurt you, Ethan. But you need to understand, there are others who want what you have. People who would stop at nothing to get their hands on your abilities. You're not safe out here, alone. You need protection. Ethan looked at her, his eyes narrowing. Protection? He asked, his tone skeptical. From what? From people like you? Clara's eyes flickered with uncertainty for a brief moment, but then she met his gaze again, her expression serious. I'm not like them. I'm not here to control you, but I know what you can do, and I think you could help us. You could help more people than you realize. Ethan hesitated. Help who? Clara took a deep breath and stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. There's an organization, a group of people who have been tracking individuals like you. They're trying to build an army of enhanced humans, and not just for defense. They have bigger plans, dangerous plans. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. An army? He repeated, his mind racing. What do they want with me? Clara hesitated before speaking again. They want to use your abilities to change the balance of power in the galaxy. They want to control not just enhanced humans like you, but anyone who might pose a threat to their vision. They want to conquer. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. The last thing he wanted was to be involved in a war, a fight for control. He had spent his life avoiding such things. But Clara's words lingered in his mind. The idea of his abilities being used to harm others, to fuel an army for conquest, was unbearable. Why should I trust you? Ethan asked, his voice rough. You say you're not like them, but how do I know that for sure? Clara's eyes softened with a mixture of regret and determination. Because I'm not here to control you. I'm here because I believe we can stop them. Together. Ethan studied her for a long moment, trying to decide whether he could trust her. The weight of her words, the seriousness in her tone, made him uneasy. But there was something about her, the way she spoke, the conviction in her eyes that made him hesitate. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't lying. I don't know about this, he said quietly. But ... I'll think about it. Clara nodded. Take your time. But remember, you're not alone anymore. You don't have to keep running. Ethan watched her for a moment longer, his mind spinning with the possibilities. Was this the beginning of something new? Or was it just another trap? Either way, he knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change forever. Revelation of the power Ethan couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest since Clara's words. The thought of an organization hunting people like him was enough to make his blood run cold. He had spent his life keeping his abilities a secret, hiding in plain sight, always staying one step ahead of those who might exploit his power. But now, with Clara in the picture, things had changed. She knew too much, and worse. She seemed to believe that his abilities could be used for something bigger. As Clara walked away, giving him space to think, Ethan couldn't stop the flood of thoughts racing through his mind. An army of enhanced humans. He didn't want to be a part of that. He wasn't a soldier, never had been. He didn't want to fight wars or play politics. He just wanted to live quietly, working on his ship, away from the chaos of the galaxy. Clara's words lingered, gnawing at him. You don't have to keep running. Could he really trust her? She had seemed sincere, but how could he know for sure? People had betrayed him before, and he wasn't about to let it happen again. He ran his hand through his messy hair, frustration building within him. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. After a long while, Clara returned, her face set in determination. I know you're still thinking it over, Ethan, but we don't have much time. If you're going to help us, we need to act quickly. Ethan looked at her, his gaze steady. Help? You want me to help stop this group from using people like me? And what makes you think I'm the right person for the job? Clara didn't flinch. Because you're more than just someone with healing powers. What you can do is something that no one else can. It's unique. And there's more to it than just healing, isn't there? I saw it when you snapped that bone back into place. You didn't just heal it, you strengthened it, like your body was making itself better, improving itself. Ethan's heart skipped. A beat. He hadn't told her about that. How did she know? He opened his mouth to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He had been so careful to keep his abilities hidden, so why did it feel like everything was slipping through his fingers now? Clara continued, sensing his hesitation. I've seen others like you, people who have abilities they don't fully understand, people whose bodies have been altered. But you're different, Ethan. What you can do, it's more than just an upgrade. It's evolution. Ethan swallowed hard. Evolution? The word sounded too big for what he had always known. His abilities were just a part of him, nothing. Extraordinary at least, that's what he had believed. But Clara's words made him rethink everything. I know it's hard to believe, Clara said, her voice softening. But think about it. Every time you're hurt, your body gets stronger. It adapts. It's like your DNA is rewriting itself, making you better. Do you feel it? The change inside you? Ethan frowned. He had never put it together like that before. He had always thought his enhancements were just part of the technology that had been used to alter his body, an after effect of an experiment gone wrong. But Clara's words made him question everything he thought he knew. I feel it, said slowly, but I didn't think it was evolution. It feels more like ... survival. He hesitated. Like my body's just trying to fix itself before I break. But I never thought it could make me stronger, or change me like that. Clara smiled, her eyes bright with understanding. That's the key, Ethan. You are evolving, even if you don't realize it. And that's why they want you. You're the perfect example of what they could do with this kind of power. What you have isn't just a tool for survival, it's a weapon. Ethan felt a chill wash over him. A weapon? The thought made him uneasy. I don't want to be anyone's weapon. I just want to fix things and keep to myself. I understand, Clara said, her voice sympathetic. But sometimes, Ethan, we don't get to choose what we become. The galaxy is changing, and people like you, people who are different, are going to be the ones who change it. You can either be a part of that change, or you can let others control it. Ethan stared at her, his mind racing. She wasn't wrong. The galaxy was full of conflict, and people with powers like his were rare. If he stayed hidden, he might be safe, but he might also miss the chance to do something greater. Was he willing to let the galaxy be shaped by others, or did he have the strength to stand up and shape it himself? I don't know if I can do it, Ethan muttered. I'm not a hero. I've never been one. All I know is how to fix things. Clara stepped closer, her voice steady. Maybe that's all you need to know. Fix things. Fix the mistakes of the past. We don't have to fight the whole galaxy, Ethan. But we do have to stop the ones who would use people like you to create an army. We can stop them together. Ethan's heart raced as he looked at Clara. He had always been alone, always worked. Alone. But now he realized maybe that wasn't the only way. Maybe there was a chance to fight back, to use his abilities for something bigger than survival. Okay, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I'll help. But we do this on my terms. I'm not just some weapon to be used. I need to know who I'm working with and what we're fighting for. Clara nodded, her eyes soft with gratitude. Deal. But first, we need to find out everything we can about this organization. and we need to move quickly. Time is running out. Ethan took a deep breath. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was taking control. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was about to change everything. The hidden agenda Ethan stood at the edge of the ship, looking out into the vast emptiness of space. The stars twinkled quietly in the distance, and the hum of the ship's engines was a constant reminder that they weren't alone. He had agreed to help Clara, but his mind was far from at ease. His decision had come quickly, but the weight of it was still heavy on his shoulders. Clara had told him to prepare himself. She had warned him that the mission ahead wouldn't be easy. As the two of them sat down in the ship's small briefing room, Clara spread out a set of maps and documents. Her eyes were steady as she looked at Ethan. "You made the right choice," Clara said, breaking the silence. "The group that's after people like you, they're not just some criminal syndicate. They're far more dangerous. They've been building an army of enhanced individuals for years now, and they won't stop until they control everything." Ethan frowned as he studied the map. The lines and notes on the paper seemed to blur, and for a moment he felt like he was looking at something far more complicated than a simple mission. This was bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. But then again, he had never thought his life could get any more complicated than fixing ships and staying hidden. "What exactly is it that they want with me?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "You said they want to control people like me. But what does that mean? Why me?" Clara leaned forward, her face serious. "They want to use your abilities to create the perfect soldiers. You're not just a healer, Ethan. You're evolving. Your body is getting stronger, more advanced every time you get hurt. The organization knows this. They believe that if they can unlock the full potential of people like you, they'll be unstoppable. They'll be able to conquer entire worlds." Ethan's stomach tightened at the thought. It was one thing to be enhanced, to live with abilities that helped him survive, but to be turned into a weapon for someone else's war? That was something else entirely. They want an army of people like me? He muttered, more to himself. Then to Clara, "I don't even know how this works. I'm just one person. I don't know how to stop them." Clara's expression softened. "That's the thing, Ethan. You don't have to stop them alone. We don't need an army to fight them. We just need to find the source of their power, the place where they're creating all these enhanced individuals, and take it down." Ethan looked at her, uncertainty creeping into his thoughts. "And you think we can do that?" "I know we can," Clara replied firmly. "But we need to move fast. The longer we wait, the more dangerous they become. And they already know. About you. You're not safe here. If they find us, they'll destroy everything. You won't just be a target anymore. You'll be their key to victory." Ethan didn't know how to respond to that. He had always known he was different, but to be hunted by a powerful organization that wanted to use him for their own gain? It was a thought that made his skin crawl. "How do you even know about all of this?" Ethan asked, finally meeting her gaze. "How do you know they're after people like me?" Clara hesitated for a moment, then sat back in her chair. She glanced at the papers in front of her, then back at Ethan. "Because I've seen it. I was once part of a different group, an organization that was trying to stop them. I worked undercover to gather intel, to learn everything I could about what they were doing. But then ... things went wrong." Ethan leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What do you mean, things went wrong?" Clara's face darkened. "I discovered their plans, but when I tried to expose them, they came after me. They destroyed everything I worked for. They killed people I cared about. I barely escaped with my life. But now they've found me again, and I'm not going to let them get away with it this time." Ethan could see the pain in her eyes, a deep, hidden sorrow that only made her more determined. He could feel the weight of her words, the urgency in her tone. This wasn't just some mission for her. It was personal. "I'm sorry," Ethan said quietly, his voice sincere. "But how can we fight them? They're bigger than us. They've got resources, technology, and an army. What do we even have?" Clara smiled faintly. "We have the truth. We have the ability to expose them, to take away their power before they can use it. And we have each other. If we can break into their headquarters, find the heart of their operation, we can destroy everything they've built." Ethan looked at her, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on his chest. He had no idea how they would do it. But Clara was right about one thing: they couldn't just hide anymore. If this organization was as powerful as she said, and if they truly were after him, there was no point in running. He looked at the map again, then back at Clara. "Okay, what's the first step?" Clara stood up, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We're going to need help. We can't do this alone. I've got some contacts, people who can help us get inside. But we need to be quick, and we need to be smart. We can't afford to make mistakes." Ethan nodded, a sense of resolve settling over him. "Then let's do it. We find them, and we take them down." The tension in the room was palpable as Clara moved to gather the rest of the gear. Ethan felt a shift inside him. Something had changed. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was about to take on a fight bigger than anything he had ever imagined. The unknown lay ahead, and he had no idea what the future held. But one thing was clear: he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. Clara glanced back at him, a silent understanding passing between them. "It's time," she said. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The mission unfolds. The ship soared through the stars, its engines humming steadily as Clara piloted them toward their destination. The space around them was vast, endless, yet Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every turn, every movement felt like it might be the last. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and now, more than ever, he understood how much was at stake. Ethan sat in the back of the cockpit, his mind still racing. He hadn't spoken much since their conversation in the briefing room. Clara was the one with the plan, the one who had experience in this kind of fight. She knew what she was doing. Or at least, that's what she kept telling him. They had been flying for hours, and the closer they got to their target, the more tense the air felt. The headquarters of the organization Clara had warned him about was hidden on a remote planet, a place few people even knew existed. Its location was a closely guarded secret, one that only a few trusted operatives knew. The mission was risky. There was no guarantee they would make it back, but the alternative was worse. If they didn't act now, the organization would have. Everything they needed to control, not just enhanced humans like Ethan, but anyone they wanted. Clara broke the silence, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "We're almost there. I've got some contacts on the ground, people who can help us get inside. They'll give us the access we need." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the view outside. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. "And after we get inside, what's the next step?" Clara glanced over at him, her expression serious. "Once we're in, we'll have to find their main server room. That's where all their data is stored. We need to destroy their systems, everything they've built. If we take down their infrastructure, we'll cripple them." Ethan frowned. "You think that will stop them?" Clara didn't hesitate. "It's our best shot. Without their data, without their organization, they'll fall apart. It's the only way to make sure they can't build their army. But we need to move fast. The longer we stay in their compound, the more chances they'll have to detect us." Ethan leaned back in his seat, trying to steady his nerves. The mission was becoming more real by the minute, and he had no idea what they would encounter once they arrived. But one thing was clear: he had to do this. He couldn't let them use his abilities to fuel a war. He wouldn't let them turn him into a weapon. Clara's voice brought him back to the present. We'll need to work as a team once we're in. I can get us inside, but I'll need you to be the one to disable their security systems. You've got the skills for that, right? Ethan nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what she meant by skills. He had repaired ships, fixed engines, and patched up wiring, but this was different. Hacking into an enemy system? It was a whole new ball game. Still, he wasn't going to let her down. He could do this. He had to. Yeah, he said, his voice more confident than he felt. I can do that. Clara smiled briefly, but there was no humor in it. Good. Once the systems are down, we'll have a small window to get to the server room. We need to act quickly. There will be guards, alarms, and probably a whole lot of other things trying to stop us. Ethan met her gaze. And if we get caught? Clara's smile faded. We don't get caught. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Ethan's stomach tightened with anticipation. The planet below was a barren, rocky world with little vegetation and even less life. The perfect place to hide a secret base. But it was also the perfect place to face an enemy that knew how to stay hidden. The ship descended through the clouds, and Ethan could see the outlines of the compound in the distance. A large, sprawling facility surrounded by high walls and security checkpoints. It was more fortified than he had expected. His heart raced as he took in the sight. This is it, Clara said, her voice steady. We're going in. The ship touched down in a small clearing just outside the compound's perimeter. Clara powered down the engines and turned to Ethan. You ready for this? Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared out the window at the looming compound, his mind still trying to catch up with the reality of what they were about to do. It wasn't just about his abilities anymore. It was about stopping something much bigger, something that could change the entire galaxy. He exhaled slowly and turned back to Clara. Ready as I'll ever be. Clara gave him a nod of approval, then stood up and moved to the back of the ship. Let's move. We don't have much time. They gathered their gear-light armor, communication devices, and the tools they would need to disable the compound security systems. Clara handed Ethan a small device, a sleek, black piece of tech that looked like something straight out of a spy movie. This is what you'll use to hack into their systems, Clara explained. It's designed to bypass their security measures. Once we're inside, you'll need to plug it into their central hub. That's where you'll disable their alarms and cameras. Ethan nodded, tucking the device into his belt. Got it. What about you? Clara gave him a knowing look. I'll handle the guards. Just keep your head down and follow my lead. We'll get through this. Ethan felt the weight of the mission settle on him again. He had no idea what they would face once they crossed the compound's gates, but he knew one thing. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath, he followed Clara out of the ship. They moved quickly, staying low and avoiding the security patrols as they made their way toward the compound. Ethan's heart was pounding, his every sense alert. They were close now, so close to taking down the organization that had been hunting people like him. But the real challenge was just beginning. Confrontation. The quiet of the barren landscape was shattered by the heavy sound of their boots crunching on the rocky ground as Ethan and Clara made their way through the shadows, keeping to the edges of the compound. The cold night air bit at their skin, but it wasn't the chill that made Ethan's heart race. It was the unknown, the feeling that they were about to step into a world where every move could be their last. Clara moved with the precision of someone who had done this before. Her body language was calm, controlled, but Ethan could see the intensity in her eyes. She was focused. She had led missions like this before, but this time it was different. This time the stakes were personal. Ethan kept close behind her, his mind whirling. They were getting closer to their target, the heart of the compound, but every step seemed to make the air heavier. The thought of what would happen if they failed, what the organization would do if they got caught, was almost too much to bear. It wasn't just his life on the line anymore. Clara's life, too, was at risk, and Ethan wasn't sure if he could live with that dot. The compound loomed ahead, its dark walls and high towers reflecting the pale light of the stars. They had reached the perimeter, a set of thick walls with spotlights scanning the area. Ethan's eyes flicked from side to side, scanning for any sign of movement. Clara paused, signaling for him to stop. She crouched low, her body blending into the shadows. Ethan followed her lead, his heart pounding in his chest. "They've got patrols," Clara whispered. "Stay low, stay quiet. I'll take care of the guards. You focus on the systems." Ethan nodded. Clara was the expert here. She had done this kind of thing before, but something gnawed at him. He had never been in a situation like this, facing an enemy who wanted to use him, control him. His ability to heal and adapt had always been a part of him, something he had learned to live with. But now, it felt like his body was more than just an asset. It felt like a target dot. As Clara slipped into the shadows, Ethan moved to the side, keeping out of sight of the patrols. He could hear voices in the distance, the sound of footsteps echoing off the compound's walls. His mind raced, calculating every possible move, every contingency plan. His training as a mechanic hadn't prepared him for this, but he had learned to improvise, to think quickly. He had no choice but to make it work. Clara's voice broke through his thoughts. "I've cleared the first set of guards. Move now." Ethan's pulse quickened, but he didn't hesitate. He darted toward the first checkpoint, the device Clara had given him in hand. He reached the security panel, an electronic lock with a keypad and a set of flashing lights. He had seen this type of system before. Simple enough to disable, but the pressure of the situation made every second count. He knelt down, plugging the device into the panel, his fingers working quickly. He could feel the weight of every second ticking by. If they didn't disable the security soon, the alarms would go off, and they would be caught. The device hummed in his hand, and the light on the panel flickered. His heart skipped a beat. Was it working? His mind raced as he waited, willing the device to bypass the security. Then, with a soft click, the panel went dark. Ethan exhaled in relief, a small smile tugging at his lips. One down. He signaled to Clara, who was waiting a few steps ahead, her eyes scanning for any signs of movement. The path to the interior was clear for now, but they couldn't afford to waste any time. Clara motioned for him to follow, and they moved quickly, slipping through the compound's inner corridors. The silence was oppressive, but Clara moved with ease, as though she had memorized every twist and turn of the base. Ethan tried to keep up, but every so often he found himself glancing over his shoulder, the feeling of being hunted never far from his mind. The deeper they went, the more tense the atmosphere became. Ethan could feel it in the air, the weight of the eyes that might be watching them. They were getting closer to their goal, but they were also getting closer to danger. He could sense that something wasn't right then. As they rounded a corner, a loud noise echoed down the hallway, a sound that made Ethan's heart skip a beat. The hiss of a door opening, the clatter of boots on metal floors, the unmistakable sound of a patrol turning the corner. Clara's hand shot out, grabbing Ethan by the arm and pulling him into a small, dark alcove. The guards passed by, there. Voices low but steady. Ethan held his breath, praying they wouldn't stop. "I knew it," Clara whispered, her voice tight. "We're not alone. Someone tipped them off. They know we're here." Ethan's stomach churned. He should have known. He had been too trusting. There was no way they could have avoided detection forever. But now, with the patrols closing in, they had no choice but to keep moving. He turned to Clara. "Do we fight?" he asked, his voice low. Clara shook her head. "Not yet. We're not ready for that. We get to the server room first, disable their systems, and then we'll make our move." The sound of footsteps grew louder. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. They didn't have much time. Every second felt like a lifetime as the guards moved closer. Clara motioned for him to stay silent and stay hidden. They pressed themselves against the wall, barely breathing as the patrol passed by, not noticing the two figures standing in the shadows. The moment the guards were gone, Clara grabbed Ethan's arm and whispered, "Now." They ran. Adrenaline pumped through Ethan's veins as they dashed down the hallway. They were close now, so close to the server room, but with every step, the danger increased. He could hear the footsteps of more guards closing in, a hum of alarms faint in the distance. He glanced at Clara. There was no turning back now. They had come this far. They had no choice but to keep moving, no matter the cost. And then, as they rounded the final corner, they came face to face with a locked door heavily reinforced, with security systems that would take longer to bypass. The door to the server room. Clara pulled out a small device. "We're almost there," she muttered. "Hold tight." The moment of truth was upon them. A new alliance. The silence in the hallway felt like it stretched for an eternity as Clara knelt before the reinforced door, her fingers working swiftly over the keypad. Ethan stood guard, his eyes scanning the corridor nervously. He could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on him, but there was no turning back. They were so close to their goal now. Everything they had risked, everything they had fought for, was about to come to a head. Clara's hands moved with the practiced ease of someone who had hacked into countless systems. But this time, the pressure was different. The stakes were higher. If they failed here, if they didn't get through that door, they would be trapped at the mercy of the enemy they had been trying to destroy. Ethan's heart raced as the seconds ticked by. Every second felt like a countdown. He could feel the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The guards could be just around the corner, and he didn't know how much longer they had before they were discovered. Finally, with a soft click, the door's lock disengaged, and Clara's eyes met Ethan's. With a look of relief, "We're in." Ethan's pulse surged, his muscles tensing with both anticipation and exhaustion. "Let's go." They slipped inside, the heavy door closing behind them with a faint hiss. The server room was vast, filled with rows of servers humming with activity. The air was thick with the quiet sound of computers working, processing information at a rate that Ethan could barely comprehend. This was the heart of the organization's operations. The data that controlled everything, their network, their soldiers, their plans, was stored here. And they were about to destroy it. Clara moved quickly to a nearby console, her fingers dancing over the keys. Ethan stood watch, his eyes darting around the room, scanning for any signs of trouble. The tension in the air was palpable. If anyone discovered them now, there would be no escape. As Clara worked, Ethan felt the weight of the moment. This was it, the point of no return. He had known this day would come, but now that it was here, it felt different. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He wasn't just fixing things. He was making a choice that would shape the future. "Got about 5 minutes before the security systems notice something's wrong," Clara said, her voice low but steady. "We need to get the data wiped and the system shut down before then." Ethan nodded. He had no idea how she could be so calm, but he admired her for it. She was in control. She knew what she was doing. But then, the soft hiss of a door opening behind them made Ethan's heart leap into his throat. He spun around just in time to see a group of armed guards step into the room. It all happened in an instant. Clara's eyes widened as she reached for her sidearm, but the guards were too fast. They had already locked on to their position, guns. Raised, Ethan's mind raced. They had been so close, too close. He could feel the familiar surge of panic rising within him, but he quickly shoved it aside. He had no time for fear. They were outnumbered, but they still had a chance to fight back. One of the guards spoke, his voice cold and commanding. "Surrender now, and you won't be harmed." Ethan glanced at Clara, who met his gaze with a quiet nod. They had been ready. For this. They knew they wouldn't be able to get in and out unnoticed. The question was, how long could they hold out? Suddenly, Clara stood, her eyes locked on the head of the guards. "We don't surrender. We finish what we started." Without warning, she fired her weapon. The sound of gunfire was deafening, and Ethan instinctively ducked behind a nearby server unit. He could hear the guards shouting, the sounds of gunfire ricocheting off the walls. This was no longer about stealth. It was about survival. Ethan's heart pounded as he scanned the room, looking for a way out. They were trapped, surrounded. But then, as the chaos unfolded around him, he saw something. One of the guards had a weak spot in their armor, a chink in the design. A moment of opportunity. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Without thinking, Ethan moved, his body reacting on instinct. He grabbed the nearest piece of equipment, an exposed wire, and yanked it free. With a quick motion, he threw it toward the guard, hoping for the best. The wire hit the guard's armor, sparking a sudden burst of electricity. The guard staggered back, momentarily stunned. It was just enough of a distraction for Clara to take. Them out. In a few seconds, it was over. The guards were down. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the distant hum of the servers. Clara breathed heavily, her gun still in hand as she looked at the fallen enemies. She was panting, but her expression was unwavering. She turned to Ethan. "We've got to finish this. The data's still there. We can't leave without wiping it." Ethan nodded, his breath shaky from the adrenaline. He knew she was right. They couldn't let the system survive. If they left with even a fraction of the data intact, the organization could recover. They needed to erase everything. Clara returned to the console, her fingers moving rapidly over the keys. Ethan stood watch, his mind still racing with what had just happened. His abilities, his enhancements, had been put to the test tonight. It wasn't just about healing or adapting anymore. It was about fighting. About standing up for something bigger than himself. As Clara typed in the final command, the console let out a soft beep. The data was wiped. The system was shut down. The organization's hold over enhanced humans was broken. They had done it. Clara turned to Ethan, her expression softening for the first time since they had entered the compound. "We did it. It's over." Ethan couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. He had been part of something bigger than himself. They had taken down an empire built on manipulation and control, and in doing so, they had set themselves and others free, but there was still a long road ahead. They weren't safe yet. The mission had been a success, but their fight was far from over. Still, for the first time, Ethan felt like he wasn't alone. There were people who understood him, people who cared about what happened next. He turned to Clara, his voice steady but with a trace of gratitude. "What now?" Clara smiled, her eyes gleaming with the fire of someone who had seen the fight through to the end. "Now we fight for the future, together." As they made their way out of the server room, Ethan realized something. This wasn't the end of his journey. It was just the beginning.